Thank you all for joining us to another weekly AMA. We have some very interesting things to discuss, which will actually require your involvement if you're so inclined. We have an interesting initiative that you guys can get involved with, alongside all of the usual news and discussion that we have in our weekly AMAs. And of course, at the end, we'll have our weekly quiz for the brain boxes out there. So I'm going to give my update about more general Cherry business things. And then we'll move to Marv, or I'll actually do my update at the end, actually. So Herman's going to give us a brief update and describe the very interesting initiative that we're about to launch. So keep an eye on our Twitter and on Telegram. We're going to launch this in a couple of moments. But I'll hand you over to Herman now. He'll give you a general core update. And then we'll move straight to Marvin, who will talk a little bit about Cherish. Then I'll come back in and discuss the Cherry business update. And then finally, we'll have Diego, who will give his account of the developments at Seedling. And to close things off, we'll have our quiz. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Herman now, and he'll give us his insight into what's going on in the project.
Good morning, afternoon, good evening. I'm traveling, so that is even more accurate statement of mine. It's now, for much of the team, afternoon. I just woke up just to do this. So I do apologize if I'm a bit groggy, but I think there's some interesting things we'll be sharing, and I'm going to involve some special guests that I want to announce in today's AMA as well. So first of all, I want to mention I wasn't in neither last week's or the weeks before the AMA of both of these weeks. I did attend Web Summits. I think it was an impressive event, and the teams performed very well. We'll continue to release content about that for the weeks to come. I think we made some interesting connections. I, in particular, managed to connect with, perhaps, though the quality there wasn't the best, particularly in relation to crypto. Crypto tends to be still a bit not quite into mainstream events like Web Summit. It was still good to evangelize crypto and share in particular to the attendees there. We did so. All this to say that the general crypto folk there weren't of the level that we are normally used to with Cherry and other similar projects that are highly technical and focused less on the hype. But we did manage to make some good connections. I'm going to announce some of these as they crystallize. But I can mention that in the Polkadot ecosystem alone, we spoke with the people at Composable Finance, Interlay, and Subsocial. All of these are valiant partners to advance the layer 0 architecture solution that we are now introducing, and more specifically within the Polkadot effort and parity. I have seen a question about parity in the chat. I'm going to address this now also because it fits within my recount of Web Summit. While we don't have that finalized yet, that's also the reason why it's not been promoted since we first sort of let it out, we announced it. But we will have very likely a more specific announcement about that and how this interaction with parity, which is still somewhat present and has been present throughout, since we are building on Substrate, which is Parity's Parity created Parity flagship framework to build blockchains. So we'll have some updates about that, I think, by the end of this year. With that, a few weeks ago, we announced that the relay chain upgrade. This is the largest and most significant update so far to our network. We announced this was pretty much done, I think. We had a couple of core developers join us and we spoke about its significance and so forth. It was since released on testnet. And those of you who've had the pleasure of using our testnet and already dabbling with what has been built so far have been honored with its use. I find it delightful, really, interacting with something that works pretty remarkably. It has a whole bunch of new features, but I think those features that you would commonly expect in a blockchain, let's say cheap and reliably fast transactions, all these things, this update now brings to Cherry. And so the time has come. This upgrade has been online on testnet for a while, and we now believe it's ready to go on mainnet. So there's a few announcements pertaining to that today. I think we're going to trickle them through this call. I don't want to be speaking so long, but I think I'd like to invite one of the core developers who are now here to answer a few questions. So I don't know whether you planned this out, Bobby and Sikon, but I do have 3 questions, and you can alternate. You can answer them all by yourself, one of you, and we'll get through it probably to finally announce what the actual announcement is for this AMA. So first of all, the relay chain does have all these. There's a dog behind me trying to. Okay. How was this done so well? I think it was months and months of hard work, but maybe walk us through now that everything's done mostly. Any one of you want to answer that? I don't think they can. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if he's here, so I'm gonna do that. Are you here for this?
I can hear you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Why don't you take this one? And I take the next one.
Okay. So how was all this done so well? So Fotis actually did the whole thing about the latest changes, which means the extensive testing that we are having now, and that we are gonna have for a couple of days, maybe a week, and to ensure everything works as intended. And well, it was very hard because of the whole versioning of Polkadot and Substrate, but we are here, and I think that's it.
So now that this is done mostly, and deployed on testnet, quite thoroughly tested, and I've mostly already given away that this update is now ready to get on mainnet. What's the timeline from here, more specifically?
Well, firstly, we need to see how everything will go through the bounty and the testing. See if any issues arise. We will have to solve them. And I think the bounty is till Sunday. So I would say max 3 weeks.
All right. So you heard it first from Fotis. Indeed, there is a bounty, and this bounty will involve technical and non-technical users. It's already mostly planned out. We should, I don't know, Owen, are you working on it right now? we should announce it within minutes from this AMA, if not within this AMA as well. Well, what we want to do in this bounty is to test a few new and existing functions of the testnet, make sure that everything works as expected, so that when we eventually do release to mainnet, we won't encounter any unforeseen issues. So maybe one of you guys can tell me what exactly what elements this bounty is meant to test.
Yeah, so we want to test some of the fundamentals and basic functionality, like staking, the rewards that nominators will get, simple transactions, just transfer some balance between accounts, setting an identity, making treasury proposals. Pretty much that's all. Spinning up a node, of course, and connecting with our nodes. I think that's it pretty much what we want to test.
I think so too. Okay, guys. So thank you. I don't want to keep you any longer, and I don't want to keep myself rambling on and on. I'm going to now leave it on to the other guys. But for reference, if you guys want to look at to the bounty guide, anyone who's listening, they can do it right now on our forum, dao.cherry.network. You'll find the latest post is one edited by myself. It is under the general section. And it will give you the instruction to participate in the bounty, how it all works, and the benefits you may get from participating and helping us out to get through this quite pivotal moment. All this will be explained in far greater detail by Owen on Twitter. We'll have a few interesting interactions. I think we'll make it such that we don't only get technical benefits, and these technical benefits will be quite significant, but also a bit of much needed social benefits too. Guys, thank you, and I guess we'll chatting on again next week. Bye.
Thank you very much, Herman. And thank you very much to the devs. It's always great to have you guys around because, yeah, it's. I'm sure our community kind of get bored of hearing the business people like me and the lads every week. It's good to hear from the engine room of the Cherry ecosystem itself. So thank you very much for taking time out to join us. Yeah, I can confirm, as Herman said, that we are going to set the links live in a matter of moments. So if you just keep an eye on our Twitter, I'm just compiling the posts now. We have a pretty detailed account of how to enter, thanks to Herman. And thanks to John, we have a short video tutorial as well. It's very straightforward, and you can stand to win 1,000 share if you enter. And on top of that, we have another parallel competition or bounty airdrop, which is for the more technical amongst you, which will involve spinning up a node, running a node, and seeing how that goes. Just to stress test, as Herman said, the network, so that we know we're ready to rock when we go to the next phase of Cherry's development. So expect that tweet to go out in a couple of moments. I'm just crossing a few T's and dotting a few I's here. In the meantime, I'm going to hand you over to Marv. Marv's going to give quite an interesting update with regards to Cherish. And then I think Diego will give his seedling update, and then I'll come back at the end to discuss some of the finer points of the testnet, bounty airdrop, and also a more general business update as to the developments with the more commercial side of both the Cherry project itself and associated ecosystem entities. So if Marvin is here at the moment, then we can let him jump in. And yeah, I think he's going to tell us a lot about the development of Cherish and some of the cool things that are going on the technical side and the business side, the feature side. There's a lot going on with Cherish because, as you guys know, it's about to drop pretty soon. So thanks, Herman. Thanks to the devs again. And Marv, take it away there, please.
Thank you for the very kind introduction, Owen. And thank you to Herman and the devs for a bit more insight into what is going on behind the scenes at Cherry. Well, not only Cherry has been making great strides in development, also Cherish has, and this is it's really becoming exciting for all of us at Cherish because we've been working towards the final launch, the first launch of our platform for such a long time, and at the end is really finally coming in sight that we can finally start to release parts of our alpha. So development is really speeding ahead at a pace that we've never been seen this pace before. And things are getting accomplished at a really, really high pace at this moment. So I think that's really good news for us and for you guys who all have an interest in Cherish. So I'll be looking forward to giving you guys some sneak peeks of what the development is looking like and where we are at as soon as we can. Then over the last week, we've been developing some of the partnerships from the new connections we've made at Web Summit. Really interesting to go and meet people who also have their stake in crypto and blockchain and Web3 and having conversations with them and possibly working together at on things that they might have an edge in over us. So that is really exciting, and I'm looking forward to maybe sharing some of that with you guys in the future. Then we have started a new creator initiative with interviews where we interview some of the creators that have been onboarded and really get into depth with what their issues are with social media and how possibly they would like changes they would like to see in the global space, and how we will try to solve these. Then finally, we have been working on some video content for a while now, and that is quite about ready. I think we'll be able to release it in the next 24 hours, which I'm very excited of to show you guys. And we had made a video in the past, but we feel like it was a bit outdated. So we needed something new to present our project in a fresh coat of paint. So we are really looking forward to showing that off to you guys. I think that is about it for Cherish. There's a lot more on the way, and things are really ramping up. So it's looking really exciting for the next weeks. I'll give it back to Owen. Thanks.
That's fantastic. Sorry about I couldn't get my mic off mute there. That's fantastic, Marv. That's very encouraging. And Marv, could you tell us a little bit about some of the kind of feature decisions that are being made? Obviously, we can't discuss the details and the exact specifics of this. But what kind of decisions have we made with Cherish from a strategic standpoint? Has there been any kind of trade-offs that we've had to make based on our feedback from creators that we've been talking to online or talking to in Lisbon or whatever? Like, I've just seen
Definitely.
a lot of GitHub activity and a lot of discussions about some of which I was involved in regarding, especially for the early phases of a platform release, you have to make some decisions, and there are some trade-offs, and there are some things that need to be weighed up against each other in terms of priorities. Can you give it the community some idea of what kind of areas are we targeting, and where do we want to position ourselves for Cherish in the market?
Right. So right now we're working on mainly the front end, right? The back end is completely done. Everything's there, everything we need to. So now it is, our job is to puzzle a way at how we want the platform to feel when it runs. The platform needs to run smooth. Everything has to be very intuitive. So it is there are these little niche and nuances that we have to think about when we're presenting this product. and they can really impact the user feel of the platform to the fullest. So sometimes, let me just give a very easy example, how the curator pages will look. Everybody's used to these long scrolling, infinite scrolls, where you just get flooded with content and nothing really specifically gets looked at for a longer time. So we're willing to do away with all of that, which is somewhat of a risk to people who are used to social media platforms and other settings like Instagram or TikTok, where they're used to the infinite scroll. But we decided for a more personal approach with our creators. This means that you would get a profile page of a creator where you can solely interact with your creator as well. We've gone against a global feed, but more personalized feeds. We've gone against algorithmic feeds, but more a curated feed that really presents the best of the best. So when you go to one of these creators' profile pages, you'll really just be able to get in touch with what they're trying to present in their way, and not in a conform way that other platforms like to present these creator pages. Just something like this really impacts the whole feel of the platform and how users and creators go along with it and how they get in touch. And I feel like the decisions we make here will have a greater effect on as I said, the feel of the platform. This is one of the many things that are going on right now and that we're touching on. But as you can imagine, it's not just one thing, it's 1,000 things at once. I hope that answers some of your question.
Yep, that's great, Marv. Sorry about that again. Yep, that's fantastic. Yeah, as Marv explained, at Cherish, with Cherish, we're looking to make a social media network that kind of bucks the trend. You might have noticed with the other Web3 social networks, the majority of them are looking to become ultra TikTok or, Instagram on steroids. They just try and make things even more like the Web2 incumbents and try and do it better or faster or with more money or with more decentralization, which is fair enough. But at the same time, the Cherish vision is one that is supposed to be more sustainable, long-term, and ultimately beneficial for the world of creativity itself. So I'm quite excited for that. Thank you for joining us again, Marv. And of course, this comes back to the infrastructure. A lot of these things are quite creative, and to do these things through a Web3 paradigm is quite difficult. So you need to have a powerful infrastructure and feature set, which can only really be possible with the existence of a very, very strong platform like the Cherry network. So this is why it's things like the testnet and our testnet bounty itself are quite important, because once that is running quite strongly, then we can really build these visionary products like Cherish, or some of the many projects that are currently building on Cherry with the Cherry network. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Marv. I think what we'll do now is move on to Diego, and Diego will give us a good overview of what's been going on with Seedling. Quite exciting times for Seedling, and I think Diego will be able to give us a good account of that now in a moment.
Hello, guys. Yep. Thank you, Owen. Thank you also for the devs. Always interesting listening what's happening from the inner engineering side, from the more community's perspective. Also, thank you, Owen and Marv, as always, for the regular update. From the Seedlings perspective, there is also a lot going on. Starting with projects as usual. Our latest project, Bagger Games, was a huge success. Ended up selling out very quickly. I'd say even 90% or 85% of the pool was filled up in the first 3, 4, 5 minutes, with some very big contributions, which was great to see. I think everything going on in Seedling from the project's perspective in the last let's say 2-3 months has been great. We have received some great feedback lately, and we're very happy for that. Whilst VCs keep investing in strong projects, the retail fundraising has been impacted by a great amount. And fortunately, Seedling has been delivering some quality projects, making this still a very attractive opportunity for investment. In the case of Foxtrot Command, which has been listed for a long time now, they are launching their private beta at the end of the week, on Sunday or maybe Monday morning next week, which was one of their requisites or obligations, conditions, let's say, before listing with us. I will be testing and playing the game personally with founders, as I said, at some point on Sunday or maybe Monday. And upon successful experience and seeing all they have been doing lately, this could be potentially one of our next sales. Other than this, we have, as always, a couple of projects on the pipeline. We are still waiting. One of the first projects I personally was involved in the negotiation when I first started, which I'm very hyped about, which keeps delaying their TGE, looking for a good strategic moment to launch. But yeah, as I mentioned before, we will not sign projects just to sign projects. We are looking at listing the best projects we can find in our platform, and we'll keep our high standards, or our standards high. Moving on to the community section, we have engaged conversations with some interesting companies who provide some high-level services to a certain degree. We will be looking at how to take our face wash or repositioning, let's say, to reach the maximum audience possible. We're thinking on the format, etc. We want to maximize the effect of this and not just implement and introduce it and then see the reaction by community, but rather a more studied and strategic way of doing this. Furthermore, the documentation has also been updated. There was some misunderstanding previously with some parts of the documentation. We have tried and made it more user-friendly and understandable. However, due to the nature of our allocation system, which is different to the rest, it does require some level of understanding to completely, fully understand how this is being calculated, including the dynamic price variable, etc. So yeah, update of documentation prepared and updated for the new people that will want to come on board. We have also announced the winners of AMA giveaway. I'm still waiting for some of the people to actually contact me. There was two $50 AVM token winners and $500 allocation for Seedling to contribute in any of the upcoming sales. We have also been working on the university stuff behind the scenes with some very intelligent content for you guys to read and learn from. And lastly, marketing. The marketing push, as expected, will come directly after repositioning and directed by repositioning, let's say. So the marketing will be based on the whole repositioning rather than just Seedling as such. Our objectives are competitive advantage. We are trying to onboard as many communities as possible. So if you guys have any contact with community leaders or Telegram groups or anyone you think we might benefit from, I am always available on Telegram or Discord, actually better Telegram. And that is all for today. Thank you, guys. I'll let you with Owen.
Thanks, Diego. What I'm going to do now, actually, we had an interesting question during the AMA from one of our long-standing community members, and they asked about what is our take and what is our ideological stance on the maelstrom of nonsense that has emerged and has been foisted upon the industry by the debacle with FTX and Alameda and everything associated with that. I wanted to talk about this a little bit last week, but I said I'd leave it because Herman has a more substantive opinion on this. So I think Herman, I just drag him. I'm going to drag him back into the call, and he's going to give us a couple of points about this, and then I might give my own take in a couple of minutes when Herman is finished. But Herman, are you still on the call there?
I'm here, and of course, I expected this sort of question. So I've been somewhat active on Twitter. If you guys are following me, I think Twitter has become a pretty interesting space as far as news goes. Little is known of what happened actually, but there's a lot of conjecture and conspiracy theories. I tend to steer away from that. I would like to suspend judgment. I have a pretty good idea of what happened. I think it's just better to keep it to myself. Also because it's frankly out of scope. I'd frankly be more interested in first of all addressing you guys about how this affected financially Cherry. That's frankly what's most interesting. I'm no one to comment on a financial company well-being or not. Get your news elsewhere. I'd rather just focus on our work at Cherry. So we did not have any exposure as far as our treasury goes to FTX. We did have an account. We intended to start using it at some point. I and our finance team always had an inkling about FTX, mostly because it's new, not any judgment there, but we considered it a new, unreliable necessarily exchange, and for that reason, we didn't ever expose ourselves to it. Of course, our heartfelt condolences go to those who were exposed to it. I know many here, even listening, have lost money, sometimes their livelihood by trading or staking on that platform. It's a sad time. I mean, it's a sad thing. It did affect the industry. For one, within the scope of our treasury as well, Bitcoin's down, crypto's down. We are exposed to Bitcoin just a little bit. We took prompt actions to respond not just to our crypto exposure, but also to our stablecoin, which at one point, did seem to falter. Luckily, that did not happen. We currently have a pretty diversified system of maintaining our finances. I won't disclose it, mostly because it's out of scope of this AMA, and secondly because it's best to keep that information private in case of competitors, in case of attacks. But the way we handle our finances is very prudent. We're very conscientious about where we put it, and especially how we maintain value in relation to what. We currently are mostly dollar heavy. This isn't to say that we use stable coins or we use traditional finance necessarily, though we do use both. Our greatest exposure really is with synthetic assets, and that's all I'll say. So to that, we still have a very healthy budget, and we are funded for the years to come. I do think, on the other side, that this does provide a little bit of a catalyst, and this is true as far as what I've seen on Twitter and what I was saying earlier. People do seem more engaged. Not only do they seem more engaged, but they do seem engaged into things that matter. If you look back, all the issues of FTX, Alameda, all the way back to Mt. Gox and every hack since, have stemmed from the recurring issue of centralization, of ownership, of trusted third parties. These are things that Satoshi Nakamoto set out to defeat. This is something that I took personally at heart when I first joined this industry more than a decade ago. It's been a great ride since, and that's really been the catalyst for me, the main driver that kept me passionate about this. Not the mad gains, though sure, that's pleasant. When I joined, you couldn't even trade Bitcoin. Instead, it really was this ideology of not delegating value, decision-making to people, which ultimately and unfailably act in their own self-interest, but rather do it in math. And so commerce can be empowered, let's say two people that don't know each other, don't trust each other. That can finally happen on this level playing field with no further system of control, let's say government, policing, international agencies, and stuff like that. All this clutter, all this nonsense, frankly, that in 2022 we don't really need anymore. And that is overcome simply by the use of technology like Bitcoin, like blockchain, like Cherry. Of course, since Bitcoin and its revolution in finance specifically, Ethereum came about and offered similar revolution, but abstract away from finance, still underpinned and underpegged by this financial guarantee that there is a value at loss if people act against the system. Let's say 51% attacks, but ultimately enabling far more functionality with smart contracts, etc. We took this in our small, quite novel approach. We took this a step further. We do have smart contracts, and smart contracts will be featured in both WASM form, native to Polkadot, and Ethereum shortly after this parachain release. But to that, we also add this layer of trustless storage, which I think is essential to bring the effects of decentralization beyond the blockchain itself, which is still quite restricted area, and people won't eat off blockchain. They won't transmit information that they don't necessarily want to make public on the blockchain, and add a substrate to that, and make and empower people to share large files, let's say training data for machine learning. We're currently working on a project that focuses on AI and uses our storage protocol for that. To contracts, let's say real contracts, not necessarily smart, simply storing them on chain and sharing them to the counterparties in this trustless manner. So all this to say that the fault here isn't with cryptocurrency. It's not with decentralization, though I'm sure many news outlets now say and brag about, oh yeah, that's really all this is. This is all a big crypto scam. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's once again the underscoring of our need in crypto and how retrograde and useless the former incumbent system is. That's my thoughts. I'd much rather focus on our upcoming relay chain release. I'm very excited about it. It's been a long time coming, but those are my thoughts on FTX.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, very briefly, before we announce our testnet bounty, which should be in the next couple of minutes, I'm just getting the guys to proofread some of those posts. So I agree, first and foremost, with Herman's sentiment that this is, or you're most interested in hearing why this and how this pertains to Cherry and what it means for us and how it reflects on us, or whatever way you want to put it. I would say that everyone in the project is in agreement with Herman that we do have a strong bias towards the actual mission of cryptocurrency, Web3, blockchain, decentralization, etc. For different reasons, I'm sure. From a commercial perspective, some people would look at it from an ideological or political or economic perspective. Whatever it is, we have a lot of talented people in the project, and who probably, quite frankly, could be off working for some big tech company and making more money, and probably working less, but at the same time recognize that they're very lucky to be able to be involved in such a promising project with such a very clearly defined and rigorous mission to help along, I think, significantly, and play a significant role in the development of Web3 and where it's going and where it's supposed to go. I would say that we have a role to play. Cherry has a very strong role to play, and we're all quite dedicated to that. Everybody in the team is. And this brings me on to the point that I wanted to make, was that while I agree with Herman that decentralization it wasn't the cause of this. In fact, the lack of decentralization was. I agree with that, but I think that to a certain extent there will be for the next few years anyway, a lack of the kind of decentralization that would prevent this kind of stuff. I think that just because we haven't reached exactly where we want to be as an industry in terms of, you know, how many projects are still fundamentally not decentralized and don't have that kind of, you know, DAO governance model underpinning them, just because we aren't there doesn't mean we all have to fall for things like FTX, the FTX stuff, and everything that happened there. I think that there is, in the meantime, things that we can do that, even if a project isn't fully decentralized, which it should be, then we can still be able to appraise whether it is either intentionally or unintentionally a bad investment. I'm not going to trash on FTX too much as I might like to, because I'll try and be professional like Herman was. But all I'd say is that with all of these big busts and all these projects that blew up, in almost every case, there were certain red flags that suggest, whether you're a Web 2 or a Web 3 or a brick and mortar business, bad business practices, and probably shady business practices as well. And thankfully, and this is one of the reasons that I came on board with Cherry many months ago, was that these are not present with Cherry. To be honest, they're not present with most companies, most crypto projects. You generally have people who are who actually understand how to run a business in a professional and sensible and responsible manner, because it's someone else's money. And that's a serious thing, because when you're dealing with someone else's money, as Herman said, in many cases, people have their livelihoods involved in these projects and their livelihoods riding on these projects. And if you cut very fast and loose with their money, there is a chance that you will blow up and that you will ruin the lives of many people. And we understand that at Cherry. And as I said, most projects understand that. But at the same time, especially in certain corners of or certain trends in crypto, if you I mean, at Web Summit, you would talk to people, and after a few drinks, people involved in certain types of crypto and stuff would almost start to almost admit that the project they're running is either worthless or it's an outright scam in some way. And I think that Cherry doesn't have any of the hallmarks of the red flags of those projects. And I would just give people advice that you should always invest in a project that has sound economics, a sound vision, and a sound team. And many times hype glosses over one or all of those missing. So I think that that's just something that when I see the kind of mess that happened with FTX and other blown up projects, I think that it's just something that I point to when I'm discussing this with people, that you need to avoid companies that have quite transparently dodgy business practices or strategies, or even how they talk about things. You know, if they're bragging about how much money they're spending, or if they're bragging about how indestructible they are, then that's the red flag. Thankfully, we don't have any of those things at Cherry, and as Herman said, we're placed very well to really be able to benefit from what we believe will be a tremendous swing towards Web3 in the coming months and years. So that's quite positive. But those are my 2 cents on the topic of people being responsible and irresponsible with user funds, which we don't do, thankfully. We will have a blog coming out about this in the next few days, or next week or so, I believe. I think Herman and myself and our chief content writer will probably try and get some of these thoughts down in a more structured manner. So what I'm going to do now is give you a very brief business update for Cherry, and then we will move to the quiz, and then by the end of the AMA altogether, we will have the announcement for the details of the testnet bounty. And yeah, so bear with me 1 second, I just got to pull up my notes. Hang on there, guys, sorry. Now, where were we? I should have had this ready, sorry guys. Oh yeah, so there is a marketing expansion underway at Cherry. We have spent the testnet bounty is part of that. The marketing expansion will involve a lot of video content and things that really explain the vision of Cherry, which I mentioned before as being so important. And you can expect to see that the fruits of that labor in the next couple of days. We have the ecosystem projects are being ramped up, as Marv discussed. There are also some in the background that you know of or that you may not know of, which are being launched as well. Original Factory, I'm pleased to announce, will be launching to the public pretty soon. It's been going very well, and some of the smarter people in our project have been working on that to make it look nice and cool. I think that maybe we'll get Herman to discuss some of the trailblazing projects in our ecosystem maybe next week. We might focus back on the ecosystem a bit then for that update. But as you heard earlier, Cherish is coming along in leaps and bounds, and Diego and Seedling are making some great project as well, or some great progress as well. And of course, the testnet bounty itself is going quite well in terms of what we've laid out and what we did, the interest that we expect to get from people. I'll treat the steps needed in a couple of minutes, and we will and we're going to stay online in the Telegram chat and the Discord just to answer any questions that you guys have. And very best of luck to everyone entering that. What I think we're going to do now is, in a couple of moments, we're going to do the quiz. 1 second there, please. Okay. So John, could you? I think we're going to wrap up now, and we might do the quiz now, if that's okay. I think John has been working on getting those questions together. So John, do you want to just mute the chat and get people on board with that? Okay, I think the quiz is about to start now. 1 second, guys. Yep. Okay, so John's doing the quiz now, so I'm just going to mute myself, and we can all get involved. Very best of luck for the quiz as always, guys. And we'll talk to you over the course of the evening about the entry into the bounty, testnet bounty airdrop. So yeah, any questions, just send them our way. Thanks, guys.